Hello, everyone. Once again, a formal welcome to our informal networking event, Tea Time with AuthorAID.
Hi.
And today, hello, very nice to meet all the lovely people and enthusiastic people from all over the world. So AuthorAID has a flagship event. This is Tea Time with AuthorAID, where we come, grab our favorite cup of tea, and then talk about the topic. Today, we are going to talk about predatory journals with our host, Andy Nobbs. Uh, Andy has been working with AuthorAID for 9 years now. This is a lot of time. And his work is focused on helping researchers develop their research writing and communication skills through online resources, courses, mentoring, and peer learning. He currently manages the AuthorAID project and has been instrumental in the development of our massive open online courses on research writing and proposal writing. And Andy has also been involved in training journal editors in Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka in digital publishing practices, and he previously worked for an academic publisher in journal e-marketing and library marketing. So this is Andy. He will be hosting the event today, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining in, and I hope you'll have a very fun, productive session. I'd like to hand it over to Andy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Asta, for the introduction. Welcome everyone to Tea Time. This is my first tea time, actually. I've watched a few, but I've never actually tried facilitating one myself. So there's plenty of opportunity today to interact. And whilst I've got a big slide deck of stuff in a presentation, I'm hoping that this will mostly be a discussion for you to share your experiences of the topic, which is predatory journals. And a lot's been said about this topic, and there's a lot of information out there on the internet, some of it true, some of it maybe not so true. So I thought it'd be good to have a discussion with you about it, rather than it being me saying to you, this is what a predatory journal is. Although I do have some strong opinions on the topic, I'm more interested in hearing from you and in your experiences. So today, you have a chance to talk out loud, so you can well, within reason you can unmute yourself and talk, but I prefer it if you put your hand up. We may mute people if there's lots of noise in the background or lots of feedback and things like that, but otherwise this is an opportunity for you to talk out loud, or you can talk in the chat box. Say anything you like in the chat area, and I'll try to keep an eye on what's happening there. And then we're going to use Mentimeter, which will give you the opportunity to be anonymous in talking about this topic. So anything you say in there, unless you put your name in there, is going to be anonymous. And I'd love to hear from you if you have any actual experiences of getting published in one of these so-called predatory journals. So that's the topic for the day. I'll quickly share couple of introductory slides first. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through a big presentation at the moment, although I might go through a few little slides later, especially if you're all very quiet. So let's share my screen. Actually, just to say briefly, as well as hearing about your experiences of predatory journals, if you've got any particular journals that you're looking at the moment and you're wondering about and thinking, is this a real journal? Is this should I really be publishing here? I'm not really sure about this publisher. Also share that with us in the chat box or out loud, and we can have a look at the journal and their website together. And that can be quite fun, just to kind of have a sort of go through the website and have a look and see the details that they give. So yeah, anything you want to talk about related to predatory journals, just share away, and we'll discuss together. Right. So let's just quickly share my screen. Screen 2. Let's have a go at that. So. Okay, so first of all, this is my opening slide, how to avoid predatory journals. It's a PowerPoint presentation I have, which I'm not going to go through in order. But this morning, I had a picture here of a cat instead, and I thought, let's see if we can find a different image. And I used an artificial intelligence provider called DALL-E to see if I could come up with an alternative image that was produced by artificial intelligence. And this is the best it could come up with, and it's it's okay, but it's kind of a bit weird. But basically, the idea is you got this row of books and journals, and there's this predator emerging, and so you have to be careful. But it's a bit of a silly picture. I'm still experimenting with artificial intelligence. It's not always perfect. But what I actually wanted to do first was to hear from you, rather than going through loads of slides first, and hear from you on Mentimeter. So I've got a few things on here, and you can go through these different questions at your own pace. And actually, I've also got a link which I'll share in the chat box in just a moment. But what you can do is you can go to menti.com and put in this code. Actually, I'm just going to test this out myself as I do it, because I've used Mentimeter for lots of things, and I often forget to update the code. So it's 74203016. Yeah, okay. So the first question is, where are you based? I'm not sure why it's giving 3 choices, but just if you put in there where you currently are. If you're in 3 different places, then feel free to share several, but if you share where you currently are, so you can either put in the code on the screen, you can use the QR code on the screen if you feel like doing that. Sometimes that works for me. Or I'll also try to find the link, and I'll share the link in the chat box. So that's the first thing to do. I will just grab the link now and add it into the chat box. So you can go there also. I'm just going to go and check out to see if the Menti is working, and your answers are coming in now. Yes, they are. Right, let's share that screen again. So you should be able to see the Mentimeter now. Yeah. Okay, so the answers are coming in. Kathmandu, Nepal, India, Sri Lanka, Nigeria, New Delhi, United Kingdom, a university. Okay. Imodol, where's Imodol?
It is in Nepal.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay. United Kingdom, Malawi, Ghana, excellent. Germany, Nigeria.
Let me add my country, Rwanda.
Rwanda. Okay, a shout out from Rwanda.
Rwanda, we are here.
Okay, definitely somebody from Rwanda, at least one anyway. Somalia, Syracuse, that's Bernard. I know that's definitely Bernard in New York, Syracuse University. Ogbomoso, now where is that? That's really got me thinking about my geography. Oyo State, is that in Nigeria? MRC. Osaka, excellent. Kenya. Okay, I'll wait for one more. So the word Nigeria is coming out quite big now, so I'm assuming that we've got quite a few people from Nigeria, and also Uganda is growing. So we've got good geographical diversity. Delta State, Nigeria. New York, yeah. That's probably Bernard as well, I think. Hi, Bernard. It's very early in the morning, isn't it?
Yeah, not too bad at all. It's it's 7 now, so it's better for me now.
Ah, okay, brilliant. Oh, Bolivia as well. It's also, I imagine, very early in the morning in Bolivia as well. That's even further to the west, I think. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Okay, oh, Trondheim, excellent, in Norway. Okay, so we can. Some of you may have already gone ahead to the next question, and you can do that. The very last question actually is asking for people to share their experiences if they have published in a predatory journal. Again, that's completely anonymous. So let's go to the next really important question, which is, what drink do you have? I thought this is an important one to ask for tea time. Water. Okay, we're very healthy here. I have tea. You can't see my mug. I have tea, and I also have blackcurrant squash. So I have 2 drinks. We have water, warm water. Okay. Is that warm water? Is that kind of an Ayurvedic thing? So is it the optimal temperature for water is kind of quite warm, isn't it? It's supposed to be good for you rather than cold water. I don't know. Fanta, Coke, coffee, green tea, watermelon juice. Oh, that sounds nice, actually. Sobo local juice. I'm not sure what that is. Currently having coffee. Okay. Cold water. Okay, yeah. A mango juice. Soda. I don't know. I really fancy watermelon juice now. I'm not sure I have access to that though. It's not really very common drink in the UK to be able to buy. Mostly water or green tea, and I think only 2 people saying coffee. Okay, right. Let's go to the next question then, which is okay. Now we're getting down to business. Now we're talking about predatory journals and trying to get some of your experiences. So, have you had any experience with predatory journals? And no, we haven't actually discussed what this means yet. We'll have a chat about this in a moment. But we haven't discussed what a predatory journal is. But so 7 people have said I've heard of them but don't know what they are. I mean, the definition is quite vague, and I think it's quite difficult to define what they actually are. So that's absolutely fine for you to say that you're not really sure what they are. 8 people said I've received emails from them. So if I'll share some of my emails in a moment. 3 people I've nearly published with them, and 2 people I've published in a predatory journal. And don't worry, it's completely anonymous. And if you have, and I know lots of people who have, and I'm hoping to organize a webinar in a couple of weeks with somebody who published a couple of their papers in the predatory journal, and they're going to talk about their experiences about that and how different it was from publishing in a real journal. Okay, so there's some experiences. There's definitely some experiences of emails. We might be joined later by Richard de Grace, who's been doing some analysis of the language that predatory journals use. And we've also got a blog post on that topic, which I'll see if I can share in the chat box. So next question. Right. Oh, is it showing the answers? Enter answers. Okay, here we go. How can we avoid predatory journals? So I wanted to get your ideas on this rather than tell you what I think at the moment. How can we avoid them? Avoid spam mails, yeah. I think the top 2 answers on the page are that. Avoid spam mail. You can probably avoid like 90% of the danger of getting published in a predatory journal by just avoiding the emails that you get sent from people that you don't recognize. Publishers that you haven't registered for alerts with, that you don't recognize. Coffee. Perhaps if you drink coffee, you may be more alert. Focusing on the peer review process that they mentioned in their journal website. Yeah, so the main thing that differentiates a real peer review journal from a predatory journal is in the name, really. There's a rigorous peer review process. And often many people will find that it's very easy to get published in a predatory journal because there's no real peer review at all. Scouting the website and following the reviewers, asking from other websites if they're valid. Yeah, it's definitely some scouting of the website. Really, don't just look at the name or go follow the link which somebody gives you. Really look at their website and see what the journal says about itself, who the publisher is, who's on the editorial board, those kind of things. By looking at the editorial characteristics, date of submission and acceptance articles, and that's an interesting one. Definitely really good journals, not all journals, but the best journals provide a date of submission and then a date of acceptance, and you can kind of tell how rigorous the peer review process is from a difference in those dates. Having an open repository of known predatory journals, and that's an interesting one, and maybe we'll discuss that later if we talk about journal blacklists. Now, there are some lists of predatory journals. Some of them are better than others. When you receive an email from them, think this is too good to be true. Yeah, I think that's a good rule to use. Is this deal too good to be true? Have you received an email from somebody calling you most respected scholar? You can get published in this high impact journal next week. Think, is this too good to be true? And then there's some really good stuff in here actually, by knowing how to identify a reliable journal, not just going by a list of predatory journals. Yes, knowing what a good journal looks like, rather than just worrying about predatory journals. What does a really good journal look like? What does an appropriate journal for your research look like? Use of tools. There's a number of different tools that are used, which we can talk about a bit later, such as there's Think, Check, Submit. There are some lists of predatory journals, or there's your own critical thinking skills as well as a tool. Encouraging blind peer review processes and no APC. So an article processing charge. If you publish in a journal which doesn't charge a fee, then that's probably not going to be a predatory journal because it's free to publish. And there are lots of journals which don't charge a fee. Ensure the journal is listed in a reputable repository. Yeah, or a reputable index is another good way. Thorough background checks, especially if you receive unsolicited emails. Yes. Choosing journals for well-known indexes, such as the Thomson Reuters index, that's another good tip actually, and we can discuss the different indexes. Not only Thomson Reuters, which I think has been renamed now actually to Clarivate. So you've got Clarivate, Scopus, DOAJ, PubMed, but there's some journals that you can make a note of and make sure that you look in the indexes for the journal. Google Scholar is also something we should discuss further as well. It's another index, although it's very easy for journals to get indexed in Google Scholar, so that may not be perhaps the best index to look at. Peer review process. Ensure the journal is listed in a reputable repository. Know and target only reputable journals. Use Think, Check, Submit. There should be a regulatory body, perhaps. I don't think there is though. There's a couple of websites which we can discuss, but they're not very well regulated. But it's a shame. And I'm not sure what that word is. Avoid their. Is that supposed to be patronage? I'm not sure. But anyway, there's some really good answers in here, and you've kind of done the job for me. So I don't need to share my slides, although I might go through them quickly later. And then I asked, what sources do you use to look for reputable journals? And I'm going to share what you've said. Okay. So we've got some tips here on where to look. What sources do you look for? Science Direct. That's the Clarivate index, formerly Thomson Reuters, I think. So that's a source of reputable journals. Scopus is also very similar. It's a good source of reputable journals. Social Science Research Network. I think that's SSRN. I think that's a good source. Jane Biosemantics. We can share the link for that later. Actually, I quite like that website. You paste in the text from your abstract or from your article, and it finds a journal based on the text that you use. Scopus, Web of Knowledge, or Web of Science. I mean, Google Scholar can be a way to find good journals, but you have to use it quite critically. And journal citation reports, again, that's the Thomson Reuters or Clarivate index. Think, Check, Submit is a useful website. Scopus, Cite the Right or Cite Them Right. SciMajo is similar to Scopus, I think. Okay, so, and what else do we have down there? Google Scholar, again, we can talk about Google Scholar. There are predatory journals in Google Scholar because Google Scholar indexes almost everything. And so you really have to sort of put on your critical thinking hat as you navigate through Google Scholar. Okay, the next one I put in here, please share your experiences. So yeah, so I won't share the answers in here now, but I've left another question in here for anyone who wants to share their experiences, and perhaps we'll get to that a little bit later, and I'll give you some time to come onto here and share any experiences that you've had anonymously. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll stop sharing. And let's see, oh, we've got 62 people here, excellent. So the number of people has grown. So I'll share the, for those of you who have just arrived, actually, I'm just trying to scroll up and find the link to the Menti, but there's been so many things in the chat. Oh, there it is, yeah. So we'll share the Menti again for those of you who have just arrived. And we will just open up for some sort of questions and thoughts so far. Perhaps if anyone has any experiences they want to share, if anyone wants to ask any questions on the answers that's been given so far, please either put your hand up or put your question in the chat, and we can discuss further. I've got one question in the chat box already. I'll go to that first, and then I'll go to Dr. Esuman. So the question is, could you further explain about use of tools to check journals? Okay, so yeah, so there are a number of tools that we can think about here. And if anyone would like to add to this, please do go ahead, because what I'll do is I've got a few on a slide here, the ones that I know, but there may be some new ones. There's a comment, if I can find the right slide. Okay. Where's my share screen button? So you should be able to see this now. So these are the tools that I was thinking about. These are so-called blacklists and whitelists, and there was something many years back called Beale's list, which is still in existence, and something very similar called predatory reports. And these have been mentioned a lot quite recently, because there are two lists of manually updated lists of predatory journals and publishers. And for these top two, they can be quite useful, but they are, well, the first one, the Beale's list, was shut down because of some legal action taken against the author many years ago, and it's been updated anonymously for the last few years. And similarly, this predatory reports website is also anonymously maintained, so we don't know who's actually writing these lists and the news and the blogs that are associated with them. And so they may be useful, but I would use with some caution, because we don't know who's writing them and we don't know what their agenda is. So just bear that in mind. There's been some big controversy recently because a well-known publisher has been added to the list on the Predatory Reports website, and that's MDPI. And so there's this big discussion in the scholarly community over whether they are a credible publisher or not. They're a very successful commercial publisher, but some of their journals have got some rather controversial practices. So those top two lists can be useful, but use with caution. There's something else called Cabell's blacklist and whitelist, which you have to pay for, and which I think are probably quite expensive. I've never managed to access them myself, so that's another thing to bear in mind. And then other tools, I would say, and we can talk more about these, indexes such as DOAJ, which is Directory of Open Access Journals, Web of Science, also called Thomson Reuters or Clarivate, Scopus, and PubMed. So those are the tools that I would mention. And let me see, actually, because I've got another slide in this, because somebody's just asking about Sorry, 1 second. Somebody's asking about Google Scholar. Let me just mention these indexes in more detail. I need to find, I've got so many slides for this presentation. You'll be glad that I'm not going through the whole thing. I just want to find it. Okay, here we go. Right, so these are the indexes which a couple of you, actually quite a few of you mentioned in your answers on Mentimeter. So you've got the Web of Science. It was owned by Thomson Reuters. It's now owned by a company called Clarivate. And this is the index from where the impact factor, the journal impact factor comes from. This is the company that calculates the impact factor. And so if a journal claims to have an impact factor and it's not in the Web of Science, then it's not entirely telling the truth. And similarly, you've got some other useful websites such as Scopus. And you can use these websites to check to see whether the journals are actually indexed in them. You've also got PubMed and also an index within that called Medline, which is for medical journals. And you've got the directory of open access journals. Most decent journals will be indexed in at least one of these sources. So, some good journals aren't, but they should really be, particularly if they're open access, they should really be indexed in the directory of open access journals. And I put a little thing at the bottom of the slide here which says, what about Google Scholar? Now, the problem with Google Scholar, it's an excellent source of information, but it indexes absolutely everything. And there's nobody actually checking the quality of the content that's indexed in Google Scholar. And so it doesn't do any kind of quality check on the journals that are being indexed in Google Scholar. Whereas all the other indexes on this page do to some extent. So Web of Science, Scopus, and Medline have a very rigorous review process for a journal to get into those indexes. The directory of open access journals isn't quite as harsh as those three, but it still looks at the publishing practices of the journals. Whereas Google Scholar, it's very easy for a predatory journal to get indexed there. So whilst Google Scholar is good and it's a good source of information, it doesn't do a quality check on the journals themselves. So I'll stop sharing now and open up to other questions. And Dr. Esuman, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation and the information you are sharing with us. My issue is the true definition of predatory journal, because for me, from the publishing environment, my area of specialization is publishing studies. We see the publishing business as more of a competition. Somebody wants to knock somebody out of the business. Somebody wants to be the giant in the business, and somebody wants to follow the publishing process. Others don't follow the publishing process. So for me, those who don't follow the right editorial process, you know, that rigorous process, I would consider them as predatory. But there are others who also, when you submit, their names are not in the Scopus. They are considered under Google Scholar. When you submit, they send a feedback of what the reviewers have done for you to work on it. And then when you work on it, you send it back to them. Then later, they publish it for you. They have the specification criteria where you set your article based on those specifications and all that. But you wouldn't find them in the Web of Science, the giant sites that you have. And one example is International Journal of Social Sciences and Research, you know. And so it baffles my mind with regards to that, because I have sent a paper there before, somewhere 2015. And then there was the back and forth. They did the review, they brought it to me, I did all my corrections, sent it back to them. And then they did it, and they charged me $30. Currently, as I'm speaking, many organizations cited that paper, including World Bank, textbook research document. And since then, I still get people citing that document for the high impact journal articles. So the point is, I don't know the final definition, how they define it. I know it's a competition, but then some of them, you could clearly say that their names are not part of the top-notch indexes, but yet they are applying some of the publishing process to get the papers in the right way than others, actually. So what is the bottom line?
No, that's a really good example. And I try to be quite careful sometimes when I just use this expression, predatory publishers. And we need to be careful. It's not a world of predatory publishers and good publishers. I think there's a lot of in between. There are lots of journals out there that aren't necessarily published in the big indexes. They're not high impact journals. They may be providing a very good service to scholars to get published with their first paper, or to get published in a very niche topic or in a particular region. And they're not predatory journals, but because they don't have a great editorial board, or they don't have this fantastic website and top-notch publishing practice, that doesn't mean to say they're predatory. So no, I'd agree, and that's a really good example you've given of a paper which is constantly cited and has made an impact. And it's obviously good research, and it should be valued for that, and not necessarily for the journal it was published in. And if you've received good peer review and good guidance, then that's a perfectly respectable paper that you've got published. So we do definitely need to consider that. And I think it can be quite difficult to define what we mean by predatory publisher. And some people think it's a very problematic phrase to use, because in a way you're saying that journals that are published in countries outside of North America and the UK and Europe are predatory. And so that it's kind of problematic to kind of just say that journals published in a particular region of the world aren't valid and aren't credible research. I'll see if I can share some examples of definitions of predatory publishing later. Vive, do we say it Vive? You've got your hand up.
Yeah, it's Vive.
Okay. Hi.
Thank you very much. I go with Viv, but then I'm called Vivian Muhil. I'm from Rwanda. I'm early career. I can't call myself junior researcher. It's still even early career. I'm doing my master's in global health delivery at University of Global Health Equity. My question goes to like a kind of finding the good journal to publish to, because sometimes you find all those indexed journal you can trust. It takes long, most of the time it takes long for them to get back to you, and like you might be in hurry of like publishing, and if I can quote the school requirement, they might ask you like to publish some papers, and because you know that they will charge you some fund, and also they will require you to take all those process that can be long. You go for those minor journals for you to get all the requirements. What can you advise in regard of that kind of funds, and also time that's required for your article to be published? Thank you.
Okay, I think I missed it in the middle because we had some background noise. Could you repeat the question, please?
Briefly, the question are two. Like for those indexed journal, most of the time it takes long to for your article to be published because of all the review process, and also they charge you some funds. And for us who are like early career in research, we might tend to post our article to those journals which are minor, for us to get some publication very quickly without even spending that kind of funds required. What can you advise in terms of that?
I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? And I'm definitely open to others sharing their tips on this. I would, and it also, I guess, depends on what your institution is saying. Does your institution require you to get published in, for example, a Scopus index journal, or is your institution happy for you to get published in a regional or local journal? But I guess one thing I would say is that you don't necessarily need to pay to get published. There are plenty of options for you to get published without paying any kind of fee whatsoever. The pay for publish model is only if you need to get published in a certain type of journal, and it has to be. Hello, sorry, someone's just said you are not very audible. So I just realized my microphone was on top of my head rather than next to my mouth. So what I was saying was that it's good to make sure you're aware of the publishing options which are free. You don't need to pay to get published in an academic journal. You can publish in a subscription journal, which is non-open access, and there should be no fee for publishing. And there are also lots of open access journals, which you can find in the directory of open access journals. And there's no fee to publish them. So in terms of costs, try to find out the options for not paying. And that's also a good way of avoiding predatory journals in general. Do not pay to publish. There are plenty of options for you to find where you don't need to pay. But yeah, there's obviously the bigger question which you asked about, the fact that it takes longer to get published in the higher impact journals. And I don't think really there's much of an answer to that. Everyone else who's here is free to sort of welcome to give their advice on this, but unfortunately I think peer review takes a long time, and it's very tempting to go for journals which offer quick peer review, but be very, very careful if they are offering quick peer review. I've just shared a couple of links, by the way, in the chat to 2 articles from the AuthorAID website on predatory publishing.
Thank you.
But that's kind of the I guess the key question. Does anybody else have any views on that? How can you avoid the delays and also the cost of getting published in the right journal? So Dr. Salisu.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, I came a bit late, but it's okay. I got at least vital information like the website, the link to where one can actually confirm the predatory journals and all. But my concern is what actually makes the journals predatory in the first place. For example, I had a publication in one, I think, Science Alert or something, and later found out that they became predatory. And we had nice publication there, like paper had to be withdrawn, dropped just somewhere not to be used. And I began to wonder what exactly make predatory journals? What are the do we have a reputable organization responsible for categorizing particular journals predatory? I mean, what actually could have gone wrong? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think somebody in the Mentimeter said the easier thing to do is to look for good quality journals rather than trying to define predatory journals. It's to look for journals which are in certain indexes, which are published in the Web of Science or in Scopus, because you can't really say what a predatory journal is, because it's kind of impossible to find out what their publishing practices are, and peer review is often private. So I agree, it's very difficult, and there are these lists of predatory journals which I've mentioned already, but we're not sure who actually writes these lists. So it's a good question. Perhaps we'll come back to that when we've had a few more questions, and others might have some ideas. So next in the list is Onyekachi. You've got your hand up. Hi.
Someone asked how could you publish in high impact journal. For instance, given my own experience, there are journals that there are institutions that host special editions, like special edition on particular topic. For instance, Language, Literature and Society hosted an edition on Anthropocene. So there are journals that host special editions. So basically, for you to get into a high impact journal, it's necessary sometimes you target special editions. Special editions sometimes have funding. They have fundings for a particular concept. For instance, I know UNESCO has special edition on on child's rights, the woman and all that. So basically, if you're an early academic scholar who might not have been able to afford the money that is charged for A&P for high impact journals, you can use Google to search for special editions and work toward it. It's very difficult to get in, but as soon as you get in, definitely when there are other editions that has to do with researches on particular issues that has funding, then automatically, definitely they will contact you to make contributions in that respect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Onyekachi. Yeah, so yeah, special editions can be a good way to find the opportunity to get published in some really good journals. Definitely. Does anybody else have any tips on finding good journals and getting published in them? If not, I will share. I was going to share what we've got in the Mentimeter. We have some people sharing some experiences. There are a couple of people. I've had a few publications in predatory journals at the beginning of my career. And then somebody else says, actually, it's on here twice. I almost published with the predatory journal. I don't even know what I was thinking. I had to retract the paper just before they published it. I was probably not in the right mental space. And so, yeah, so there are some experiences of publishing in predatory journals or almost publishing in them. And so I'll keep this open. So please feel free to keep adding any experiences that you've got, because it's really valuable to share what it's like. If anybody has been published in one of these journals, if you want to share what the experience was like and how it's different from being published in a more credible journal, please share some more information with us. I've shared a couple of links in the chat box. Oh, it's Onyekachi, are you raising your hand again, or do you still have your hand up from before?
I raised my hand again.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I have had the experience of publishing in a predatory journal.
Okay.
It's faster. I started working in 2017, so I received an email and I submitted. Within 1 week, it was published. But tied to that, I need to ask question. How do you redeem a paper that has been published in a predatory journal? Because, for instance, it's visible on Google Scholar, it's visible on it has been published already.
It's a really good question, and it's a difficult question to answer because I think the nature of a lot of these journals that we're talking about is that they don't have a proper editorial process, and they aren't bound by any code of conduct, and so they don't have to take, as soon as that's on their website, they don't have to take it down unless they're in a particular kind of jurisdiction where they're in the same country as you, and you can make a claim for it to be removed. But often, if it's in a different country, it's difficult to do that. But in theory, you can ask for your paper to be retracted. You can contact the journal, ask it to be retracted. Also check and see if you've signed anything. If you've signed either a copyright form or a permission to publish form with the journal. If you've signed over your copyright to that journal, you might not be able to do much about it. If you haven't signed over your copyright, then at least you're in a stronger position, because they may not have the rights to actually publish that in the first place. So check any form that you've signed with that that journal. I've just shared another link in a chat box, which is from the Committee on Publication Ethics, and that has some information on their website about what to do to try to get your article withdrawn. If it's in a real academic journal, you should be able to get it withdrawn by following certain practices, certain methods. So check out that link if it's relevant to you. But it can be very, very difficult to get your paper removed. And if it's already been indexed in Google, you've got that additional hurdle that it may be indexed in Google for a while yet, and it's difficult to actually get that unindexed. 2 hands up, and is that Gloria? Would you like to unmute yourself?
Okay. Good evening, everybody from. I'm calling from Malaysia, though I'm in Nigeria.
Hi.
I'm currently a student at University of Malaysia. And
sorry, we've got some interference. Can everybody who's not talking please mute themselves?
Okay.
Gloria, would you like to start again? Thank you.
Okay. I'm Gloria, speaking from Malaysia, though in Nigeria.
Hi.
I'm a PhD student at University of Malaysia. Here, for you to graduate as a PhD student, you have to publish your paper either in Q1, Q2, or Q3 journal.
Okay.
2 papers before you graduate. But we have this challenge of majority of the Q's journal, some are peer review and costly. Those ones that are not costly, maybe free journal, for them to publish it is another thing. They will take time. Some will tell you that it's not their focus. And now there's this challenge. This year, every year, Web of Science will publish some of the journals. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to find a link where we can get this year Web of Science lists of journals for this year impact factor, because here you must be up to date. There are some journals that might be Q2 last 2 years, and you discover that this year is no longer Q2. It might be Q4, whatever. And here you might not know, and they will not be able to accept it for you to graduate. Please, I'm pleading, if there is a way they can give us such link for current list of Web of Science journals or Scopus journal for this year, because when I check on net, what I see is 2021, 2022. 2021, I've not seen 2022, let alone this 2023. Then another thing, this research for life in Africa. Now I'm coming from Africa to this place, and for those people from Africa, there are concession for them in terms of amount of publication they are going to pay. Like there are some journals that are being subsidized for a particular country in Africa. And from here, I try to publish in those journals. They are charging me like somebody that is from Malaysia. They're not looking at it as an African. So in this situation, what do I do? I'm in Nigeria, I'm not a Malaysian, though I'm a student here. Like this journal Helion is part of the journal that is being subsidized. They are in the list of Research for Life. And where I am a lecturer in Nigeria, my institution is part of Research for Life. Even here, but when you put it to publish, they'll be charging you exorbitant amount that a PhD student cannot afford. In this situation, what do I do as a early career researcher? Because my salary and even the funding I have cannot be able to carry it. What is your suggestion in that area? Because that's the challenge. For me to graduate, I need to have a 2 reputable journal in either Q1, Q2, or Q3 journal. So, is there any suggestion? What do I do about that? Thank you.
So you've asked a number of quite difficult questions there, Gloria. And I can, if anyone has some really good answers to that, please share them now or in the chats. But I guess what I would say to that, I mean, so the Web of Science is a paid service, isn't it? So in order to get access to the latest impact factor information, you have to get it off Clarivate Web of Science, and you have to pay to do that. Or I have seen people share around the lists on WhatsApp. But your institution, if they are asking you to get published in a particular journal, which is indexed in Web of Science, they should at least provide you with the latest list of journals from Web of Science, because they should have a subscription to it. And similarly with Scopus, although there's a good website that I use, which I've just put in the chat box, SciMajo, which I think lists the Scopus journals Q1 to Q4. That's quite a good list. I sort of I try to repeat what I said earlier, and that I know it's very, very challenging with regards to the charges for publishing. If you really cannot afford the article processing charges, and the publisher won't provide you with a waiver for being in an African country, which many will, but it's at their discretion, then it might be worth considering either not going the open access route, so publishing in the subscription journal where there should not be a charge. And that will either mean that your article is not open access, or you should be able to archive the paper yourself and make it open access. But there are always options for free publishing in high impact journals. You just don't publish open access. You request it for it not to be open access. The circumstances of this may vary from journal to journal, but I think there's a misconception that you have to pay to get published as an author, and you don't. Most of the time you don't, unless you're in a very specific field and you're being asked to publish open access in particular journals. But I don't think you need to pay. Anya Kachi, you've got your hand up again.
Yeah. Let me, before I proceed to my question, let me attempt to answer some of Gloria's question.
Okay.
Basically, I'm wondering the mail she's using, the email she's using in submitting the paper. Is it a Nigerian institutional email she's using, or she's using the email of the university where she's doing her PhD? That's another question she needs to clarify, because sometimes the email indicates where the paper is coming from, So maybe two, that might be the criteria which they use in costing the assessment of the paper. That's one. Two, she might also offer to review for the journal or perform a particular kind of service if she cannot, an intellectual service, if she cannot pay the money that is required for her to publish the paper. That's for part of the question Gloria asked. But I'm asking, for instance, you submit a paper to, let's say Q1 or Q2 journal, and they ask you if they can publish as preprint. Preprint, and they tell you if the paper is rejected at the end of review, you can't take it down. What do you expect to do? And what is the importance of preprint when the journal is still undergoing review, is in the process of review? Does scholars accept preprint as an authority? Do they cite it as an authority in terms of their research? What is the importance of preprints? That's my question for you. The question is to one, what's the importance of preprints? Two, do scholars cite preprint as an authority since it has not undergone various levels of reviews that is required by let's say publishing outfits? Thank you.
Thank you, Anyakachi. That's a good question about preprints. I think not all journals accept preprints. You have to sort of check with the journal guidelines on whether they accept a preprint. But I think preprints are a great idea. It allows you to share your research with others rather than having to wait to either pay for it to be made open access or pay for it to go through peer review. I have published a paper through open peer review, and I've had my preprint cited by other scholars, but that particular version of the paper that's linked to clearly says on the journal page that it's a preprint and it hasn't undergone peer review. So I've had citations of different versions of my paper, and I think some people have been happy to cite that and happy to cite the non-peer reviewed version. I think if you're doing, I think you'd have to be careful to do that. I would cite a preprint with caution, because, knowing that it hasn't gone through peer review and knowing that it may later be found to be for the results not to be valid. And we saw this happen a lot during the COVID era. There's lots of information, lots of research out there being shared about COVID that hadn't undergone rigorous peer review. But I'll hand over to Bernard here, who has his hand up.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. This is a very quick one and more of a benefit to preprint. One benefit is that for those who write grants, when you are writing a grant and you haven't published a paper to show preliminary data and you have it as a preprint, yes, it may not have been accepted as such, but at that time, it gives opportunity to reviewers to know that you have done something and for which they can also go and read and see. So, I mean, one of the benefits of that is the being able to cite it in grant applications. Thank you.
No, it's a great point, Bernard. So there's definitely value in preprints for grant applications. Okay, we're coming to the end, but does anybody else have any sort of final thoughts or want to respond to any of the questions that have come up? Just want to, Yeah, go ahead. Is that Dr. Essuman again?
Yes, my issue has to do with, I'll be very interested in sharing with us the journals that are good, but don't accept the charges, the APCs.
Yeah.
I'll be glad if you can share some of them with us so that we can pursue that line as well.
Okay, I think the best, well, because there's two things about that. One of them is, I think the best source for open access journals that don't charge a fee is the directory of open access journals. That's doaj.org. I'll share the link in the chat. So it's DOAJ, and you can actually filter by those that charge a fee and those that don't. But I'd also say that most journals, particularly for these high impact journals that have been mentioned, so journals that are indexed in the Web of Science or in Scopus, most of them don't charge you a fee if you're not publishing them open access. So you can submit your journal to be published in, sorry, submit your article to be published in their journal, and they won't charge you if it's a non-open access version of the article. And there are options for you to archive that paper yourself and share it, or you can also submit a preprint. But so just check that there's not an option to publish for free anyway in this high impact journal. There are different models of publishing. You don't always have to pay a fee. So one thing I'll just share with you before I go. I shared a link with you earlier with what were my top tips for avoiding predatory journals, and I just wanted to share. Oops, I'm just not sure it's working. Is that working? Yes. So I wanted to share with you the main points from that, and those are 6 points. I thought the best ways of avoiding predatory publishers: don't trust email invites unless you know the sender, unless you recognize the name of them. Particularly be skeptical and be particularly critical of journals which say that they are international or that they're global journals, and those were sort of a very wide scope. So be additionally critical of those journals. If it's an international journal, then it will be indexed in a good index like Web of Science or Scopus, or you'll be able to recognize it for its editorial board and for its quality. Double check when a journal says it's indexed in a particular place, or if it has an impact factor, check that that's actually real or not, because there are fake indexes out there, there are fake impact factors. So don't just take the word of the journal. Read the journal website. As some people have said in the Mentimeter already, have a read through and do an audit of that journal. Does it look like a real journal? Check to see what the journal says about itself or says about the topic of which it's supposed to be a credible group of experts on that topic, particularly in the aims and scopes or about page. You'll see lots of predatory journals use generated or Googled text, and they don't actually know what they're talking about. And also, who's behind this journal? What do they have contact details? Is it a publisher you recognize? Is it a university? It could be a learned society. It might be a really small journal, but it might still be associated with a society that you've heard of, or a university that you've heard of. And finally, the best way to look, I think, to find a journal to publish in is to familiarize yourself with the journals in your field by looking at the references of papers that you've read, of really good papers in your field. What journals are mentioned in that reference list? Those are the journals that you should ideally be looking to get published in, not the first journal that comes up when you Google International Journal of Engineering or whatever topic you're in. So go to those reference lists first to really familiarize yourself with the journals in your field, with the top journals, with the very niche journals, and with the regional journals which are involved in your particular field. So that's those are my own top tips. But I think what I'll try and do is I'll share with you what came up in the Mentimeter earlier to be sent out along with the slides that I have, which I haven't really had time to go through. We'll send those out to those who registered for this event. So you can not only see my slides, but also what everybody else said earlier, which I think is really good, some really good tips in there, which kind of summarize what I was going to say anyway. So thank you for your time, everyone. Yes, we're going to try to share those slides later with you. Thank you for your time and for your ideas and for your questions and your answers today. And I hope if you've been able to get some answers to this really difficult question, the really difficult topic, which is difficult to kind of make sense of, you know, what is a predatory journal. I hope you've been able to get some answers today, but you know, keep putting your critical thinking hat on when you get to the websites of some of these publishers and some of these journals to make sure that they really do good peer review, they've got good publishing practices, and they really do understand your field. And enjoy your drinks, enjoy your water, your warm water, and your watermelon juice and your tea and coffee, and have a good day.
Also, let's take a picture before we.
Oh yes, yeah, okay, let's take a quick picture, yeah.
Yes, everybody, please, if you are comfortable, turn on your cameras. We're still waiting. Okay, now we'll take the picture. One formal and one informal. Smile. Now you can do whatever pose you want to do. So
this is the informal one.
Okay, I have to take the picture, so I can't give the pose, but I'm liking it. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And I'd like to thank Andy for being an amazing host. And please stay updated, stay in touch with us at AuthorAID. I have shared all the social media link time and again with you. I'll share once again. And we always have so many events going on. And we'd love to see you again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, 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 bye.